Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's January the 15th. This will be our chart lesson for today. Uh, Really straightforward day to day. The only thing that might have got a little confusing is when you got into here. Normally you're expecting a new high on a retest, but we just couldn't get much higher. But you got to realize, we're making new highs every day here. We're up to 1846, and wasn't long ago this thing was at 17 something. So this thing just keeps going up and up, and that's reminds me that's something I want to just mention briefly is that there's even though there might be some big strong sell-off days, the overall bias of this market now is up, and it's been up for a while. So don't lose sight of that. So anytime there's any doubt, unless we're trending strongly down, but when your overall bias is up like that, you get a lot of bounces off these kind of lows like this, and so something to be aware of. Everything is in the day price action. That's another thing I probably don't say enough. You don't have to go back over and look at yesterday's prices or the day before's, unless you're up here in no man's land, but there's no way to go back even a few days and look to see where your previous support and resistance are when you get up here. You might have to open up a monthly chart and go way back to try to figure out where the last resistance was. But that's the only time I really look into the previous day. Let's say we were trending down and I was looking for support on the way down. I might go back into this chart. If we're making new lows for this day, obviously there's nothing else you can use for today, so then it's okay. But past that, I don't use anything in the previous days. There's everything you need to know in this day's chart, and the only reason you might need to go back would be to find support and resistance. If you're making new highs, you need to go back and find previous resistance, or if you're making new lows for the day, obviously you can't use that day to find any previous support, so you got to go back. But that's the only time and the only reason you'll want to do that. So keep that in mind. That's important. So, but let's talk about the trades today. This was a real easy channel to find. The trend was right off these first few closes. And if you weren't sure, once you saw these two up here, all you had to do was drag it up. And you can see you got a perfect fit up there, and that held all day long, and this lows off of those closes held all morning long. And you might not have been sure about these closes. It might have been down here. It might have been the closes. A lot of times you don't know till you get some confirmation. But once you knew it fit up here, all you had to do was drag it down here, and when you got that bounce, drop it right there, and that would have given you these other three trades, which are real nice trades, great setups, and as long as you had your trend line up here, you knew when to wait on it to get back to the other side, and that would have kept you out of getting in here in some bad trades, and that's how you do it, and I'll talk about that when we get there, but. This trade here set up, even if you didn't have this trend line, you could find this trade right here, and I don't have it on here, but there's a little, there's those matching lows across there. You might have even used that close right there, and you got that bounce right off of it. But really, once you bounced right there several times, I used those closes. We broke below, then we turned right up there. Great chance to get long right there. This is strong support. We tested it a couple of times, and it held each time. So you got a double bottom there, and that's higher than that swing, higher than that one. Plus, you got to try to draw your trend lines up through there. And even if you just drew it off those closes, you wouldn't have found anything that way, but you had enough right here and the EMA and this big reversal bar right here, and then you probably, because you could have, even if you didn't have it off the lows yet, you could have found it off these highs right there, and you see that, and that held all day, and this held, or I won't say all day, but until we got a trend line break, it held till then, and then we had this channel working down, and you had that trend line right there off those closes, and that would have given you these other trades here. So, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But nice setup here. Look at that reversal bar. Just drop you a stop there. You might, this bar is too strong to use a limit order, and if you did, you would have got left behind. Any runners would have been safe off that trade, and you could have ridden one single runner all the way up. You got a second entry here. It didn't quite get back to the EMA, but this is also a breakout pullback long. You should have been looking for another leg, at least that size right there. Right here. But what you really want to do is probably look at this as your first leg. Probably to right there, and then you get the correction, the bigger correction. So that's what I would have been looking for at least. But that doesn't even get you to the trend, top of the trend channel. It didn't touch it until here. But sometimes it'll turn down right there, and it won't get to the top. So you know you gotta. Nothing's written in stone. You got to play it by ear. But once this thing's moving up, you got to stay with that. So, but a nice chance to get long on a second entry here. And then this is really a two-legged move back. There's a couple legs in the first leg, and then you get this little correction and another leg back. But what keeps you from getting long in here is you got to realize we're not really back to the other side because we're coming off the top. And you see once we touch there, it doesn't really start rallying until you get to the other side. Same thing here. Once we've touched on the upper side, it doesn't really start rallying until you get to the other side. There's some setups in here, but they're really risky, and especially with all that, by the time this trigger right here, you just had too much overlap, and we just come off the high side. So if you did enter there for whatever reason, I meant to actually circle that one in the burgundy so we could talk about it a little more. And plus, I'm guessing there's probably some people that might have got trapped there. Let's go ahead and do that right now before I forget. But if you do get long right here and you don't get out, I don't even know if that made its 4 ticks. Entry would have been, if you use the stop, it was 42.50, and it didn't even get, no, it wasn't even been a 4 tick. You would have had to get in down here somewhere, and that's a first entry as well, so that's another reason. And then all that overlap, just a lot of reasons to skip that trade right there. But the main one being is we're coming off the upper side of the trend channel, and we haven't really gotten back to the other side. It's possible there's a median line in there today, but it just wasn't as clear and as strong. But yeah, there it is, and it is coming off that median line a little bit too, so that might have been another reason that you might have entered there. So if you did, hopefully that makes sense. If you got in there, once you saw this bar turn down right here, I would have exited. I would have at least had my stop right below it. And you can see, but what I was, what I was looking for personally was for it to come all the way back to the other side, because each time we've reached one side, we go to the other, and you can see that it's real clear there, there, and then there, and then you finally get the break. And so you got to be aware of that. And but anyway, I don't like entering there. Of course. Actually, we were talking about this trade. This is a two-legged move back, and you can see there's the first leg, and there's 2 swings in that leg, and then there's the other leg, and it's about a perfect measured move for the most part. It may be maybe 1 tick shy of being a perfect measured move, but that's a two-legged move back, and there's a two-legged move in the middle, and you can see high, low, high, and there's your 2 legs, and then it comes back down. So hope you can see that. It's, it takes a while to train your eye to spot that stuff, but there's no reason to be, you don't want to go short in any of these either, because we're trending up, and there's a clear trend line right here, right off those lows. And so no reason to be going short. So on a bigger picture, this is a second entry long, because there's a two-legged move there with 2 legs correction in the middle. And then off we go. And again, any runners would have been safe here, and you could have ridden this all the way up here. And then let me show you this as well. There's your first leg up in that move, and then there's your second leg, and we were just shy of a perfect measured move there. But again, we hit the upper side of the trend channel, and it couldn't go anymore, and it turned down. And it turned down pretty big there, because most people, this is such a clear channel that most people are seeing this, and now they know we're probably headed to the other side, and of course that's what happens. And plus we made a new high here, so you got to be leery about new highs for the day. You definitely don't want to be entering on new highs. You got to wait on the correction. And so we pull back here. We bounce right off the, let me move these so you can see it a little better. We bounced right off this. I was ready to go along here, but it didn't trigger, and then it turned back down, and it tested that again. And so then you get all these little matching, matching lows right here. And that's really coming from over here, too. There was support right there. So that's really a double bottom right there. And by the time it broke above this one, then you got 3 over. So I would have waited on this bar right here, and this is one because of all the overlap. You might have thought about a limit order, dropping it in here a little lower, but you could just go long on a stop right there too because of the support, and keep your stop, your safety stop, a couple of ticks below it here in case it comes back down. You get that little 1-tick trap. But I liked entering there. But even if you didn't, it turned down there and turned back up and broke out there on the second entry long again, right off that trend line. So you could add on there, or if you weren't brave enough to enter on this one, or weren't sure about that one because it wasn't real clear, then you wait on this one. But if you were here, you probably just add on right here. And again, look at it go. And man, it took off like a rocket right there. And then it comes back down just as quick. But this is a second entry long. Notice you got 2 legs down. And this thing's a little overdone right here. You know, you're looking for a new high. It's the first break of the trend line. I was a little bit tempted to make this one make this one a green bar here. But at this point, this is just a little overdone, and it's a second entry long. It's a little reversal bar. You draw this line off these highs, and you drag it back down, and it seems to be holding the closes right there. You might have even had it right here to begin with. But I tightened it up there later. Never really came into play again, so it doesn't matter. But that's, I think there's probably, I was looking at a possible channel here with a median line, and that's what it looks like. We didn't really get a whole lot more price action to confirm it. So, but there's plenty to confirm this line off this high. But anyway, long right there. Again, I was tempted. This is right on the border, being a little bit aggressive. But these are the kind of trades that are almost gimmies, really. That looks real bearish right there, and they're almost gimmies, in my opinion, because when you get that big a move and it moves, but this does look like a reversal pattern almost too. But you're going to get some kind of retest, even if you can't get there, which we never got there today. But you see, it's trying to get that retest on a trend that strong. You're going to get an attempt to retest it. So if you didn't enter there, it got too choppy after that until you got the failed second entry short right here. And I don't think it was worth going short right there. By this time, it's just like stay out and see what happens. And then notice the new low, first entry, pull back second entry. So it's a failed second entry short that reversed instantly. So when prices broke above this bar, just use a stop right there because that's a trap. And another easy scalp, and then you're finding resistance. That kind of confirmed this trend line. It looked like a possible trend line, but usually it'll go right on through there, and this doesn't end up holding, but it held right there. And then it came back and it held again. If we'd have went on out, I'd have been interested in getting short right there, but when it started piling up, it's too risky. And you don't want to go long again right there. It was tempting to go long. Let me get this out of the way. But you don't want to go long above that line right there, especially with this trend line working down through there. It's just too risky. And when it turned up there and touched it, I thought I missed a good long. But suddenly it turned down just as quickly, and it goes out the other side. So I was just waiting on this. You don't even have to wait on this bar. When it goes up and then turns down and goes out the other side, it's all in one bar. Just get short right there. Or either drop you a limit order in right in there somewhere and see what happens. And it came back again and tried that line again, but that's just a chance to add on. And if you hadn't already gotten short on this bar, then just get short right there. And 2 easy scalps. No runners. You could have gotten a couple of points out of that, but nothing big. And it just can't get any lower than all this stuff. All this just kind of moved up is what happened. I'll show you that. Well, it really didn't. I would have had it moved up because of the closes, and I would call it right there, and then you get these you finally get a little trap there. But notice this too. This is your first leg, and then you got a correction in there. So you're looking for a measured move, and that puts it down here. But we never could get down there. We got real close, maybe within a tick or so, and that's what they were shooting for. But for whatever reason, this support across here was just too strong, and we couldn't get below it again. And but I'm always looking for those measured moves and using those for targets. Um, and that's what they were gunning for. There's just too much buying in here. Couldn't get there. And that's all I marked for the day. I don't think you want to enter in any of this stuff right here. If you did, you might have thought about going long, maybe on that one right there. But when it got hung up again, I would have exited. But once it broke loose here, it moved up, pulled back, and took off again. You could have gone long right there if you wanted, but we really didn't have a break of this. But we weren't getting to the other side either, so that leads you to believe when you don't reach a target and you can't get back down, you're probably going to go further this way. I think it was a little risky. I just don't see anything in there worth taking. But you could have gone long right here after this little trap, and this was a second entry. Here's your new low. That's considered your first move, your first entry. When it's a new low like that, pull back, and then there's your second entry when it broke above this bar right here. And you could have gone long right there. Easy scalp, nothing more. And then you got another entry here, but I don't think that's a very good setup. And you see it didn't go far, and it turned out. I think that was probably good for a scalp if you took it. But I don't see any reason to take that other than the fact that it turned back and bounced off that trend line. But there's just not a very good setup there. By the time this bar, which was the first bullish-looking bar, is so close to that high and all these other highs, I just think it's too risky. And just to make it, if you draw your lines on there, you can see what it looks like. You don't want to be risking going long right there across where nothing after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've tried 5 times to get above that. So the odds are you may not get above it this time either. And all this really is just a bigger trading range here late in the afternoon. And we failed out the top, failed out the bottom, failed out the top here, failed out the top here. And we ended up closing inside it. So, but you definitely don't want to be probably fooling with this other than maybe the trap right there. And even then, I don't like it. It's too late in the day. Well, it's really 1 o'clock there. So it's not really that late, but I just don't think it's worth risking it here when you've got a clear trend line at the very least working down here, and there's been no break of it yet. So something to think about. But that's what I saw today. It was a little more confusing up in here, but you should have made most of your money on this channel, and that's real clear. It's real clear off those lows. If you didn't find it there, it was clear here. And this is obvious. We got a nice channel, and just play the sides of it and be done with it. And you should have had at least a couple of good trades here, following the rules, even if you didn't see this one. Could have found these 3, and any of these 3 were good for some pretty good moves. So, and that's what I saw today. So we did have a little problem with the website. I got a couple of emails saying people had tried to purchase the manual and they couldn't, and PayPal was acting funny, but there was some kind of update to one of our, on the website, there was some kind of update to one of our, to something that updates automatically, and it was interfering with, for whatever reason, it interfered with the PayPal purchase button, so you weren't able to buy anything, and it had been like that for a couple of days, and I just hadn't paid any attention. I hadn't really noticed. I've been so busy with, everything else, but we've got that corrected. And I've seen a couple of purchases go through since I fixed that yesterday afternoon, so I know it's working. So if you were trying to purchase one of the manuals, it should be working now, and I apologize for the problem. And but I think that was the only thing I noticed that it interfered with. If there was something else, if somebody noticed, you might just drop me a line and point it out just so I can double check it. But that was the only thing I'm aware of that it interfered with, was the PayPal button. So I think that's it. I'm going to wrap it up for the day. I hope you had a good trading day. I did get a note from at least one person that said they kind of struggled today or were a little off. But to me, this channel was much clearer than what we had yesterday. And at the very least, you could have traded this like a trading a little range and bought this, and then you even might, let's see if you sold that. Um, if you sold that breakout right there, 25, yeah, you might have been in trouble right there, but as soon as that reversed, you'd know to exit or even reverse right there. But the key was we weren't, but of course, if you're looking at like a range, that looks like a failed breakout. So you might have got tripped up there, but that's too bullish a move from right there with a trap, especially there's a little trap there. And that would be enough to make me think, hey, we're probably going to get another leg. And plus, if you saw the channel, we weren't there yet. So that's some things to think about on that one in case you got tripped up on this right here. So, um, but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.